Hi, welcome back to Beyond the First Response. I am here with Ciara. This is Christy, by the way. Not that you don't already know that. Hopefully you've been listening for a while, but I'm here with Ciara, my co-host. How are you today, Ciara?
I'm good. How are you, Christy?
Good. So we are moving our family member over a little because there were some things that they were dealing with when we talked about our last one. I mean, we had our Memorial Day one, but we were talking to communication first responders. So have no fear, that one is coming up. But there were some family things going on that we had to move it. However, this is a perfect way to end. So we're recording on May 31st, so y'all know. You'll hear it next week, but in the beginning of June. I'm like, I had to mentally do that.
7th. It's June 7th.
Yes.
Here.
Yes. However, it's the last day of Mental Health Awareness Month.
Which is a huge month for us.
Absolutely. And really it is for everybody. Whether you're a first responder, whether you're a family member of somebody who has been lost to mental health struggles, we all have mental health. I mean, we all have a brain. If you only had a brain. We have a brain. We have struggles. We have stressors. We have children. We have stressors. We have jobs. We have stressors.
We have work.
We have work. We have computer issues this week. Things go missing.
We have relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So it all piles up regardless. But I really want to talk this week, as we've been talking off the air, the importance of understanding family members' mental wellness. Especially, we always talk about first responders and, of course, they're family to us. But we have to remember that family that are not first responders, but live in that world along with children and friends of first responders. We see things we don't necessarily understand. We watch them shut down. We shut down, which is what we talked about, during communication. But it's important for us to have this conversation right now, the last day of the month, because we all struggle. And it's normal to struggle with things. But we really want to talk about it because I was looking on the CDC one. They have zombie. I don't know if it's actually still on there, but before zombie preparedness, just so you know. You might not know how to open your front door, but they are ready for zombies. I'll have to look and see if it's still on there.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to find that one.
Right. I actually Googled first responder family mental wellness. Of course, that did not pop up. However, emergency responders tips for taking care of yourself did. And I think that this is so important for us to talk about tonight because often family is not considered a first responder. And the first responders, first responders, but you and your families, this is really for the families tonight. Yes. Your families can completely relate, whether you realize this or not. I think if you soul search, you will feel like, oh yeah, I have done that. Much like you're going to do that because I said so, because I'm your parent conversation. You look back going, yeah, I probably should explain that. Whatever that is, right? But a lot of this is actually very similar for the family members because everything becomes so isolated and we're not living what they're living in that moment, but we just don't understand.
Right. Because we don't physically see it, but it comes home to us. And I don't want to use the word wrath, but sometimes it is a wrath that comes home. So we have to take care of the mental health of everybody surrounding and us too. I mean, one thing you learn is you have to, the flight attendant analogy that has become like my lifeline. You have to put on your mask to take care of you before you take care of everybody else because you're worthless without your mask. And, as a mother, our first instinct think is our children. It's always been my children up
Yes.
until my mental health healing. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And now I preach it to my children. Like, I don't care about this, or this. I care about you. Take care of you. Do what feels good in your brain. Take care of your brain and then think, okay, I'll help here, or okay, I'll do this here.
And it's still a hard thing for us to break, right? We go through things, we don't talk, we're protecting, we shut down because we don't want to feel, because feeling hurts. And over time, if you just don't feel, you'll make it through life.
Right.
Now we are
Easy.
reteaching ourselves. It's like
Right.
a circus, except I would fall off those rings every time.
Right. I'd be the one riding the elephant and then thinking I'm doing great. And then
Yeah. It is what it is. Here I am.
Right.
Yes. Yes. I was discussing things when I was at my camper this past weekend over Memorial Day, and I'm talking and I'm going to brush my teeth. I have my cortisone next to my toothpaste. Good news is my gums did not break out in hives the whole weekend.
That's really good.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my
Is there
God.
video of you talking afterwards though?
No, that would have been hysterical.
Yeah.
No. It did make my teeth shiny for a little bit. No, I don't suggest it.
No.
It was so funny though. But you have to be able to laugh at yourself, because if you don't, laughter is one of the key responses for your body to just kind of let things go. And if you don't laugh at yourself, then you can't laugh at other people. So I really need to be able to laugh at other people.
Yeah.
So I have to laugh at myself.
That I laugh. Yeah. If I don't laugh at myself during a day, like, I think there has to be something wrong with me today, because sometimes I'm so ditzy or something, you catch those little things that you do and then you're like, oh, I'm a dumbass.
Yeah.
And it's like laughing. You have to laugh at yourself. But I think that those also are puzzle pieces to our mental health, like how we're putting together our life at that moment, even if it's something ditzy, like you're like, oh, I mean, duh.
And that's a good point. So I'm always like, what are you doing, dumb shit? People are probably walking when I go into the office and I'm like, what are you doing, dumb shit? That wasn't right. They're probably like, what the heck is going on in there? Because my door's open. So I do need to re-talk to myself, because when you think about it, so that's a stress release. However, you're saying dumb shit, dumbass, whatever it is, you're putting yourself down. And you're laughing about it. But really, then I get mad at myself. Like, I just called myself dumb. I told myself I wasn't going to do that anymore. Shut the fuck up, dumb shit.
Right. I guess I'm going to have to remove this sticky note about myself.
Yeah. Ka-ching. I got these sticky notes that are dry erase sticky notes. I don't have them up here in my office here, but they're the coolest things. I'm like, I could just erase that then. I don't even have to rip it up.
Happened.
Yeah. Gone. There's not even any evidence in the garbage. It's just gone.
Right. But I think that recognizing those nuances, is that a good word to use?
Yeah.
And it's a nuance for yourself.
Yes.
Like recognizing those for yourself is so imperative for your mental health, because then you're like, okay, what can I do? Because we talk about boundaries, right? So you have to even set healthy self boundaries for yourself, with yourself. Like you have to say, okay, I'm not going to do this, or this because of this for me. I mean, I know, and I've been very open about my year two. People, I remember being in year one and they're like, oh my gosh, year two is so much worse than we talked about, when I went to Texas the first year, I was right inside of year one or year two. And I fast forward, I drank so much in year two to a point where it was like, I was running from who I thought I was and trying to keep up this facade, which is so untrue. And that communication came in with Ryan, who was like, you need to get your shit together. Like, I understand you are going through a lot, because there was not just Matt's stuff, but there was a whole bunch of other things too. And I just was running to escape all of it. And I set healthy boundaries for myself. Like we just said, like I would say, okay, well, I know I'm not an alcoholic. I know that I did things to escape all the hurt and anger
Unhealthy
and
coping mechanisms.
and it was unhealthy coping mechanisms, but I set boundaries for myself. Okay, I'm not going to do this, or this anymore because that only leads to this, or this until I get into a better headspace to be able to say, okay, I can go out and socially have a glass of wine and not a full bottle myself. Like those, and not that that was what it was all the time, but it was a boundary that I had to set with myself, or I was essentially going to lose Ryan, like, because he said, get your shit together, Ciara, or that's
Right.
it. I can't handle this anymore. And rightfully so, because I look back and like, holy shit, he's stuck through some gnarly things with me.
But that's love.
Yeah, that is love.
He won the lotto. You won the lotto.
Yeah, I won the lotto. I don't know about him. Well, there's that negative self-talk. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
not
just
okay.
but it is a hard habit to break when you're, especially in I don't know how to say it, but like where sometimes with suicide, especially when you're coming up on hard dates, you feel like you have to always protect.
Right.
And that it's like it's a coping mechanism, it's a protective thing, it's like these things that all come together, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't good. Okay, well.
Yeah. But that's hindsight's 2020. Grief does that. So that's what grief does. That's what, as you're learning boundaries and as you're going through counseling and moving forward and understanding, PTSD and what all of that did and the lack of communication,
Right.
and learning to numb over time. That's what we're rebuilding right now. This is why this is so important for families right now, because it's not who you are, it's not who they are. It's a circumstance of which the lack of understanding to what the first responder jobs has done to both them and their families, and the lack of education on the department's side and the academies and the training for 911 dispatchers, whatever that looks like. Right. That lack of understanding of what it really does. Now that's changing and it's a fantastic thing. It needs to change a little bit more over time. It will. But you were talking, a failure. You felt like a failure and you started belittling yourself, easily frustrated. I always talk about how my oldest said to me about a year after, so how's it feel not to be a Karen anymore? I'm like, wow, so true. But it's true. I was so easily agitated or quick to anger, but I didn't realize it was. I was very short because, especially by the end of the day, you're trying to hold your crap together, looking like you got everything under control. I'm at home. I'm going to lose my crap because it's a safe place, which we let our kids do. Even though we get angry with them, at the end of the day, they're doing that because it's a safe place.
Right.
And
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add just in, because it does roll with it too, is the grief is not just me or you. Grief can look so different for everybody.
Yes.
But you can also grieve somebody that's still alive.
Yes.
I mean, so when we talk about families, and I'm just saying this randomly, but there is probably relationships out there with first responders that they're 20, 30 years in, and you have a spouse over here grieving the person that they were prior to the 20 or 30-year veteran officer, firefighter. And it's the same grief, and it can look the same, but it's different at the same time.
Thank you for saying that, because you were engaged. I was divorced. That doesn't mean that I wasn't grieving the life that I thought I was going to have with the person that was the father of my children. And I wasn't dealing with that grief because I was still protecting.
Yes.
And then after death, on this side of suicide, looking back, that's when I realized that. But now I'm grieving that what I could have, should have done, not completely. When I say that, we have no control. We can try and provide, the resources, but at the end of the day, no matter how much we provide, they have to want to get the help or
Yeah.
see that they need to get the help. So that doesn't always happen. It's impossible that will always happen. But then it's grieving the loss of what could have been. We could have been friends. We could have, we could have co-parented. And it's grieving that. And that's a difficult thing. And the kids first to graduate college, uh, last one to graduate high school. Those are all things that you want them to see, and they're not going to have that opportunity to. And you're like grieving that for yourself, but more importantly, you're grieving that for the kids.
Right.
And you don't want to talk to them about that because you don't want them to see you hurting. And that's what sucks. That's the hardest thing. That's that disconnect we talked about.
Yes.
Because I'm so used to doing that I don't want them to see me hurting and it's not that I don't want them to think that I'm weak, because I don't think that at all now.
Right.
But I don't want them to see me hurting because I know they're hurting.
Right. And like we kind of talked prior, is my hurt, like coming up on my date, is like so different this year, and for valid reasons. But my hurt and my anger is now this year is so much more for my daughter, for everything that she went through when Matt died. It's not, I miss Matt. I'm not at that day yet, but it's the leading up. The leading up is not nearly what it was prior. I've worked really hard, and I try to help people to work really hard for themselves too. It's that you got to give and give and give type. I have that relationship where I want to help people. But it's my anger and my grief for her is so much stronger than my anger and my grief for Matt this year. And it's really hard because she's also only 12 years old. And how can I go to her and say, I'm hurting this year for you, and then her not go, but please don't do that, mommy. Like,
Yeah.
Especially when they're young, it's really hard to find that communication that they
And that's
understand.
going to be so welcome to having a daughter.
Thanks.
But on that note, no, but it is really hard because you don't want them to worry about you.
Yeah.
And then you're telling them that you're grieving for them. And they think, what am I doing wrong? See, I shouldn't be here if they're already struggling. That isolation cycle continues. So you worry about that. But it isn't about, I guess, learning those open words, those words that can assist you in having that conversation. Because eventually, I know I have to have that conversation. It really sucks. And I don't want to because I'm afraid to.
Right.
Because I don't want
her.
I don't want them to blame themselves because none of that is theirs. But I don't want them to worry about my grief because none of that is theirs. That's my grief. But as parents, we worry about their grief. It's like that catch-22.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. And even because like Danica and I are so close. We've always been close. And I've always had full custody of Danica. So she can pick up on me so much faster than I even pick up on myself. Like she'll come in and go, "What's wrong, mommy?" And I'm like, "Oh, how did you get that? Like, how did you know like my headspace isn't good right now?" But she's also so, like you said, a girl. So she's 12. So emotions are like here, and then they're like here, and then she's like here. So it's like up and down, up and down.
All
and
in 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, about no 15. I'm gonna go 15. But then she has like so much more on her plate too, because she's, like we said, there's so many different griefs. She has grieved losing Matt, and she's grieved losing her dad at the same
Right.
time. And when I say that, like that was her choice, and that was his actions, because she's become the woman that I have raised her to be, so strong and use her words and put up her healthy boundaries. But it's still those different paths of grief that I feel now for her. And I'm like, oh man, because those days bring back just so much
Right.
emotion,
And it
no
does.
matter what.
It does. And you don't realize that it is sometimes. And that's okay because we're learning those triggers. So as you learn those triggers, we see those things in our kids. So Matt was not her father, but he was her dad.
Right.
Right. And so, or was not her dad, her father, however you want to look at that. He
Right.
was an important parental
Figure.
model for her. And did you see her, just out of curiosity, because I think it's really important that we talk about, obviously we've talked about the intimate relationship and the disconnect. But did you see disconnect in her? I mean, I saw disconnect in the kids. Not up front. I saw they were quick to anger. They hated me for years. It's like, that because they're not understanding. And I know I felt like they hated me for years. I felt like everything was always my fault because I was also beating up myself and trying to protect them and hide things from them so they didn't get hurt. At the end of the day, that is worse for them. And looking back, I saw they were quick to anger.
Right.
They were tired. They were always having a stomach ache,
Emotionally
anxiety.
overwhelmed.
Yes, yeah. So all of those that we see in the first responders was happening to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't take back that. I can only hope that I can show them, lead by example. So did you see that in Danica?
No, I mean, because when Matt and I started dating, he really started coming around the kids. I mean, he had been around the kids prior to us dating, but he was on leave is when he really started coming around the kids. And they knew he was a police officer. They knew that he worked homicide, and that they knew all of that. Um, but I guess maybe, and it's hard because Matt died during COVID. So, and he also went back to work as a police officer during COVID. So it's it's hard to say, oh yeah, it was from this, or oh yeah, it was from that, because our lives were so screwed up already when Matt died. Like, we were already so disconnected from everything and everything we'd ever known and loved that it was hard to like pinpoint. But I do know, like, my son was very, very disconnected. Like, he disconnected from me within, I want to say, like a month. Like, at first he wanted to be with me all the time, and he was worried about me. And then like all those other emotions came in. And like, I think more so once like his sister came home, and he knew like I was going to be okay because Danica was home. Like, it's really bad to say that, but like, he always knew that Danica was always with me, and then she wasn't with me. So those 3 weeks that he was around a lot, like, we were really close. But then he was like, okay, now it's my turn to have all these big emotions, and I don't want to tell you about them. I don't want to talk about them with you. I don't want to be with you. And it was like, okay, like, it's really hard to say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to force you.
Was he able to say that to you? I don't want to talk to you about it.
Oh yeah, he flat out told me, I don't want to talk to you about it. He's still 3 years out. He will not. I take that back. Up until this last March, when I went and visited him, we had not spoke anything more about Matt's death, like nothing. And we spoke this last March for the first time in almost 3 years. And it was an amazing conversation. Like,
Good.
we both talked and we're so open, but that takes a lot of like work from him and I to get to that point. Like, you can't just, you can't be here and expect somebody to come up and talk to you there too. Like, that's one thing you learn, through
Because
your own.
they're not on that same step that same journey as
Right.
you are. And if they are, their journey interprets differently for them.
Oh, yeah. And that's just every walk of life. I mean, because he and I both suffered from depression and anxiety prior to Matt even passing away. Like I had suffered for so long. So it just emphasized all of that.
Yeah. So, how do you think you should talk with kids about stress and anxiety? And we're talking, so, I mean, Danica's young enough. My daughter, Haley, was young enough that had I understood everything 4 years ago, I obviously well before 4 years ago, but had I understood everything 4 years ago, maybe our conversations could have been different. But the emotional outbursts, you fight everything. And they're fighting everything. And it's like, well, who's going to be? Do you remember that game? Oh my gosh. It was the plastic game with the robots.
Oh,
Sock'em
the one's
sock'em.
blue. Yeah, one's
Yeah.
blue and one's red. Yes.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. So when you're
Oh,
both, when the house is full of that much anxiety and that much depression and grief and uncertainty and misunderstanding, and this isn't just after suicide. This is at as your walls have become so isolated. It's like, which one
any
am I
trauma.
today? Am I blue or red? Who's going to win?
Right.
Because it's at the end of the day, you feel like there's so much constant that chaos, that outburst is what's normal.
Well, and you said, like, how do you talk to kids about that? Like, I know that I had so many conversations with Danica's therapist. She actually came to like my house right after Matt died. And I'm like, how do I talk to, an 8-year-old about this? How do I do this? What do I do? And she's like, you literally don't do anything, Ciara. You lay next to her and let her cry and let her just talk. Even if she's crying and talking about something that has nothing to do with what she's feeling, like the trauma or the anger or anything, just listen, because you don't realize how much listening helps them.
And that's hard when you're disconnected. You're listening, but you have to learn to listen in a different way. You're listening as a parent, but you're learning to listen in a different way. And that's the hardest thing, because especially when you are so good at removing emotion.
Oh yeah, because then you have to make yourself vulnerable, and we talk about vulnerability a lot, but you have to make yourself vulnerable to sorry, he just got home from work.
Hey.
You have to make yourself vulnerable to open yourself up to your own child, essentially, and let them know that you're gonna sit through this nasty whatever they're feeling with them. And they have, Danica would look at me like, okay, mom. And then she would, there was plenty of times where she goes, are you sure you want to hear about it? Yeah, I want to hear about it. Like, let's talk about it. Let's get it all out, babe. I mean, and we still do. And her thing is, can we go to my room and talk? And yeah. And I get that because, she is a young lady and she wants her privacy to talk about her emotions now.
I love that she said, can we go to my room and talk?
Oh, yeah.
It's her safe place.
Yeah, it is her safe place. And I've, since moving, I have made sure that she feels safe, because they're, living in the house that Matt passed in was really, really hard. And looking back, I am so glad that I did stay. I know there's so many people that I could have never stayed, this or this, but like, I feel like it helped me heal because I didn't just run from my demon.
Because you can't run from your demons, because they will always find you.
Follow you. Yeah. They're the first thing you unpack.
Right. And they're either going to end up, you'll see them at the bottom of that bottle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in the dark around the corner. So it doesn't matter where you are. When you're struggling with mental health struggles, grief, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome, any of it, right? It's going to find you because you can't hide from it because it's there inside you and inside, and it doesn't make you crazy. That's the misconception.
Right. Yeah.
But have that conversation, find that person, show your family that vulnerability is strength, and that you can find healthy coping skills. And we often talk about healthy coping skills, music, exercise, sleep, meditation. It's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different for our kids, but learning to disconnect. And I do find myself, especially this time of year again, I notice that I start shutting down conversation wise at home. I'm still listening to everybody, but I don't care to have a conversation. I don't care to go out and do things. I want to, but I don't because I'm taking care of everybody. I'm making excuses.
Right.
I have to take care of this, work, blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm making excuses because maybe if I make excuses, people won't be around me and they won't see that.
Right.
Those layers peeling away, because every time those layers peel away, that's ugly.
Right.
In a good way.
And and that's that whole communicate,
right,
be vulnerable, like open yourself up. And it is really hard. I mean, because I still shut down and I still am like, don't talk to me. Like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. Yeah. Especially like you said, this time of year, it coming up, and it's really hard with a young child too, especially, just I mean, even though she goes to dance, she goes to school, she's home a lot. And it's hard to tell her every day I'm okay. And she knows like I'm not okay. And she'll like say, "Are you okay?" And then I was like, "No, I'm not okay." But I mean, it was because of computer.
But you explain that to her. And that's what we need to, that's learning to communicate. I'm not okay. This is why. This is what I'm trying to do. And it's opening that conversation. It's hard. I'm not really good at that. I am really good at that with people that I am not in a personal relationship with.
Right.
That don't know me personally. Well, I don't even know that I know myself personally, but don't know me personally, intimately living in my house or in a relationship with me. I'm really good with that with my friends. I'm really good with that with strangers. And if I'm going to speak of this stuff and say, and I am working on it and I am succeeding at it, but this time of year is what I'm talking about right now. You're going to hit those ebb and flows, and it's that ebb right now that this is where I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to talk about it and say, be open, I better be doing it myself.
Right.
And that is the important thing. And that is the most difficult thing to do sometimes in these moments.
Right. Especially if your coping mechanisms all came long before like you even lost your late husband.
Your unhealthy coping mechanisms, or your
unhealthy coping.
Your defensive coping mechanisms.
Correct. Because like I know, like I said, I suffered from anxiety and depression long before I even became a mother. Like as a child, I had depression and coping, and I did all these things like OCD type stuff to help with my coping. And like we've talked, like the positive from the negative, losing Matt forced me to get so healthy and like look at myself like really raw, and know that like some of the things like I could not have fixed or done because they started as a child, and there's nothing you can do about it but learn to grow from it and learn to communicate from it. And I know like I still struggle with some things. Like I still struggle. Like Ryan's mom is probably a saint. Like to love me and my daughter and my son the way she does, and embrace us and take us in through all of our ugly, so to speak, and still be here for me and still go, I'm ready when you are to open up. Like, dang, like
It's
you
a
are.
beautiful thing.
It really is,
Yeah.
because you don't realize how enclosed you are until somebody kind of calls you bullshit, right? Like,
Right.
okay, you're bullshitting me, but I'm still going to be here for you when you're ready to open up. And we've
Yes.
gotten a lot better. I mean, here we are, 2.5 years later, that our relationship has grown and we're getting closer, but it still is like, I still have that unhealthy coping mechanism of letting people into my safe space, so to speak, and
Right.
not my physical safe space. It's this safe space.
Right. And that's part of trust, trusting that people will not use that against you. But that comes from childhood. And
Right.
it comes from not knowing what's happening when you're a first responder, when the first responder and the family is coming home. You begin to question yourself. You begin to distrust yourself, because if you were trustworthy, they would be open with you.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with trusting you. In fact, they most likely did trust you, but they were afraid that if you saw their ugly, so to speak,
Right.
right, that
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be able to trust them
Right.
or
And
or
Matt,
care for them or love them or whatever that is.
it's crazy you say that, because Matt said certain little things to that extent, just like that, but not like, if you saw what I've seen, you wouldn't like me either. And I'm
Right.
like, what are you talking about? Like, it's nonsense when you hear it, right?
Right.
So exactly what you said, you have to change the mindset and be okay with that. It is ugly. Everybody has ugly, right? Everybody has
Right.
a form of ugly. So, and I know I say it, and I've said it in every podcast, like, everybody has, we're all equal, but we're not. And we all
Right.
have all these bits and pieces that are not perfect, and they're never going to be perfect. And it's learning to live imperfectly and being okay with that. Because
Right.
I mean, if we stopped and thought, because I pulled up this statistic, but this other computer shut down. I think it's 1 in 5 people have a mental health disorder.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you have to think, like, and we're talking first responders, how many first responders are undiagnosed, underdiagnosed, so that they can continue their jobs, so to speak,
Right.
or think that they will be fired if they come out and talk about it. Like, that's where the mentality has to shift and change of talking about it, because otherwise we're just going to keep losing people to suicide. That's all
Right.
there's to it.
Right.
The numbers continually grow, even though we talk about mental health way more. I mean, especially since the pandemic, if that pandemic, the positive of the negative of the pandemic
Thank you.
is we brought mental health, like, to a forefront for not just this person, this person, this person, this person.
Right.
It's for everybody as a whole, because the numbers just continue to climb. And I mean, I know that there are studies, and I know I won't tell which child, but one of my children has been, they were previously diagnosed with something, and then their diagnosis went triple off the charts because of the trauma of Matt's suicide.
Right.
So, and it's a thing, like, children especially are, if they have this pre-existing condition, that's what we'll call it, okay,
Right.
and a trauma happens to them, they can't, their mental health can trifold worse. Like, so what was just a minor depression can now be bipolar manic depressive. And it's not a lifelong sentence, but at the same time it is. And that's where we need to take the step back and go, okay, so many people are suffering, and that's okay. It's totally okay. What are we going to do to better it, so to speak.
Right.
And I meant to look up a book, and I'll look it up so I can put it in the show notes. Because my therapist had me read it. It was something for a women's mind, how what we eat can help our depression and our anxiety. So
Yes.
there's gotta be a man's one out there, right? So I'll find it so we can link both in the show notes. So people, if they have the time and they want to, or even if they don't want to do it today, if in a month or two they're having a bad day and they go, you know what? Instead of eating this chocolate bar, let me pick up this book and go, is this really helping my mental health? I mean, us women would be like, absolutely, a chocolate bar will help my mental health today, but it doesn't. In many circumstances, it doesn't. And that's the whole thing, is we have to look at our mental health as a whole.
Find something that doesn't make you feel guilty. That
Right.
chocolate bar was what I had for lunch yesterday when I just had like toast for breakfast, didn't bring my lunch. I'm like, hi, I'm hungry. Oh, look, they have chocolate for the customers. I'm going to go ahead and take that. I felt guilt. Yeah, it was good. But I felt guilt like the rest of the afternoon, because what I should have done was leave my office, go get something healthy, or better yet, prepare in advance and actually have like a
Right.
lunch put together.
But I mean, even like that, like, because you're not helping your mental health by that guilt. Like
Yes.
guilt is, I'll have to look it up. And this was something that was said to me a long time ago. Guilt is the worst like thing for your mental health than any other traumatic response to your body, your mind, whatever, because you're constant. It's something that, and I forget the way it was described to me, and I can't even tell you who told it to me. It might have been Danik's therapist, my son's therapist. Like, I don't remember. But when you have that guilt, you're literally just going in a merry-go-round.
Yep.
You're just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, because guilt is the mind's way of, what could I have done better? So you're putting yourself down, like we said we can't do.
Yep.
You're putting yourself down. You're doubting yourself. You're saying everything that you didn't do and how what you did do was wrong. So, and guilt comes with suicide.
Yep.
And that was when it all came, is you have all this guilt, but you shouldn't have that about what you eat.
No.
But that's the whole, it's just that mindset and that mind game. And it's okay to eat a chocolate bar.
Right.
I'll never
Maybe
say
not
it's
as your lunch.
No,
but
you
as a
should like have
dessert.
it, like a nibble with
Yeah.
after your lunch for a dessert.
But it is feeding your mind healthy, positive thoughts, feeding your body the healthy food choices will help with our reactive responses when we are our anxiety is up, depression, grief, all of that. And it's the combination, because remember, our brain is part of our body. We exercise our body. Let's start exercising our brain with that. And as we end now, we're getting ready to wrap up here. I want to challenge not only you, Ciara, but I want to challenge everybody, especially our family members out there. I want you to be vulnerable and say one thing to somebody that you are close with, not coworkers, not friends, family, children, most importantly, your first responder, and be vulnerable. And if you're afraid for your first responder, let them know, I'm afraid because this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. And I want you to know that regardless of what that is, I'm still here for you. How are we going to get through this together? Let's find something to help you. And in turn, you're helping yourself if you're not already. And again, I always say counseling. My counselor has probably 3 counselors after counseling me. But if your counselor, I heard a counselor the other day say, if your counselor doesn't have a counselor, fire them.
Oh, I don't know if she would tell me the truth, but
I'm like, HIPAA law does not allow them to say unless they want to. However,
I always tell mine that she can't get rid of me, that she's stuck with me.
Right. But the truth is, if you want to speak on something, do as I say, not as I do. For us that struggle with that, do as I say, because that's what I am doing. It's okay to trip over that, to step back like we talked about. That's a mountain in the past. But at the end of the day, don't talk about something. Don't say somebody should do something if you are not willing to do it yourself. and actually
Right.
do it. Not say you're willing to do it, follow through with it. And that's the hardest thing when you're in that mindset of mental wellness. That's one of the hardest things to do. So I challenge everybody out there, first responders, their families, and maybe their kids are listening because they're driving in the car or they're doing work at home and the kids at the
Or
door.
their mom is listening, their dad is
Yeah.
listening.
Or
Yeah.
they're walking by as we're talking.
Yeah.
He's not doing it again. But at the
I
end of the
challenge
day,
you.
I challenge everyone and I'm challenging myself. I think if we do that, we'll start it out once a week. Challenge yourself once a week. That's an easy achievement. Put it on the calendar. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
I was gonna say,
preparing
write
yourself.
it down.
Yes.
Yep. When you write it down, my therapist told me this. When you write down something like that, you actively go after it harder than just thinking about it.
Get that dry erase sticky note and write it down.
Yes.
And then you can save some trees, erase it, and write it again because
There
it's
you
going to
go.
be the next one. But everybody, take your mental health as part of your physical health. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. Most importantly, it's okay to ask for help. And if you don't feel comfortable asking for help at home, and you definitely most likely will not feel comfortable asking for help at work, don't forget that 988 is out there.
Mhm.
That's the National Mental Wellness Hotline. You can text it, you can call it. It is there for you 24/7.
Yep. There's somebody to always listen, no matter what.
Yes. Yes. And find the healthy people to listen, not sitting at the bar talking to the bartender. That doesn't count.
Yeah, they don't count at all.
No. And they don't listen anyway.
I mean, I was a bartender for a long time, so I have some crazy stories. But
Right.
but it's not good. So there's another mental health thing.
Right.
Like it's you're taking your mental health and putting it on somebody else, even a stranger who could take it home, and then it doesn't sit right with them. So
Right.
talk to a licensed professional that can actually help give you sound, real, healthy living coping skills.
Right. So I'm working on, and I've already discussed this with my daughter and with my boyfriend. Give me grace. Trust has been a horribly hard thing for me my entire life. Weigh everything else on it. I'm peeling those layers away, but I am working on trust because there are trusting people out there, people you can trust out there that will not cross boundaries on you. So that's mine. Let's put it out there.
Well, mine would be trust too, then, because I mean, like we talked about with Ryan's mom. His mom comes in tonight, actually, and she's here for a week and a half because Ryan's birthday falls also within days of the day Matt passed. So they come around and they stay and they're helpful and they're a healthy light in hard times. And so that trust that will be mine for the week too.
Yes.
Especially because I'm staying alone with them a couple nights. Ryan and Danica will be home and I will stay alone with them up in Tahoe. So yes. But it's a good because it could be an open trust thing for me that it's just us.
Do that summer camp trust fall.
I'm going to tell her you said that. And she'll be like, I am not going to get you, Ciara.
Go ahead and put those couch pillows on the ground because we are not as young as we used to be.
Yeah. You'll kink your neck.
Yeah. Some bone is going to break. But thank you everyone for listening. 988 is the mental wellness hotline. Mm-hmm. If you or somebody you know is struggling, remember it's out there 24/7 all over the nation, United States.
Never be afraid to reach out.
And know that they're there for a reason and nobody's judging you.
Yep.
Have a wonderful day and we will see you guys. Well, hear you guys, or you will hear us actually next week. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
We are excited to be able to start our day with Badge Brew Coffee. Hey Robin, did you know that Badge Brew has a new charitable badge collab roast?
Hey Christy, I thought I heard that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's called First Response Roast with a spicy, smooth, medium roast with flavor notes of spice cake and citrus undertone.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And if that doesn't tempt our audience, a portion of the proceeds go to First Help. Oh, and don't forget, they're first responder family owned. Whether you're on day shift, night shift, or the shift of raising your family, Badge Brew has your coffee ready and waiting.
So let me ask you, what's your badge of honor? Find out by going to badgebrewcoffee.com and order yours. If you want the first response roast, click on Charitable Badge Collab. I know I am.